Okay, we are good to go.
Okay, good evening. This is the Design Review Commission meeting for November 25th, 2020. First item on the agenda is roll call. I'm the chair, Glenn Cass, present. Eugene?
Eugene Sim, Vice Chair, present.
John?
And John Gray, present.
Thank you. Second item is adoption of agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Let's do roll call. Glenn says aye. Eugene?
Eugene, aye. Aye.
John?
Aye.
Thank you. Third item is public comments. These would be comments on items that are not on the agenda tonight. Do we have any raised hands or star nines that should appear?
I don't see any. If you'd like to make a public comment, please use this raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen or press *9 if you're calling in. I don't see any public comments.
Okay, we have nothing on the consent calendar, nothing on study sessions this week, nothing on continued public hearings. Go to item number 7, new public hearings. So the first item that's on there, 7A, is for the Headlands Brewing Company. So Melanie, you want to go through staff's report?
Of course, thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to share my screen. Everyone can see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Good evening, Commissioners, members of the public. I'll be discussing 2 projects for the same site and same company tonight, DRO2 20cc and SO620, both for Headlands Brewery. DRO2-20cc is a request for a change of conditions from the original approved DRO220 to install 2 new awnings to a commercial building at 3422 Mount Diablo Boulevard. In addition, the applicant is also requesting a sign permit to add a new 13 foot 3 inch by 8.5 inch metal sign that reads Headlands Brewery. On March 12, 2020, the applicant applied for a design review permit for tenant improvements to an existing commercial building that included structural and exterior modifications, as well as the installation of a commercial kitchen and brewing tanks. The zoning administrator approved the project on April 29, 2020, subject to conditions. The applicant is now coming back to request a change of conditions to add 2 awnings, as you can see here and here. The awning at the southeast elevation that faces Mount Diablo Boulevard will hang over currently going through a replacement deck, while the awning at the northeast elevation will go over the entryway facing the courtyard. The material for the canopy will be a dyed polyester in a cedar color, which will be a light brown color. Okay. And then you can see here how it hangs over. The awnings will add variation to the site. Currently, the adjacent building, Boneheads, and this building are similar in scale and height. The awnings proposed will help break up the monotonous height and scale that exists and is encouraged by the downtown design guidelines. The proposed awning at the southeast elevation will cover a portion of Headlands of the building. However, the large windows at the entryway will still allow for views of the use and activity within the building from the public right-of-way, complying with downtown design guidelines. The awning will also help shield utility equipment that will be that's located on the top of the roof, which is minimizing visual impacts, especially from the public right-of-way, which also complies with the downtown guidelines. You can kind of see in this picture, the utility equipment is right behind this awning over where the entrance will be facing the courtyard. In addition to the change of conditions application, the applicant is also requesting a sign permit for a new sign to hang from the proposed awning reading Headlands Brewery Company, as you can see. The applicant proposes to have the sign hang underneath the proposed awning facing Mount Diablo Boulevard. In addition to this sign, the logo for the company will be painted on the side east elevation of the building. This logo is exempt under the sign ordinance. However, the square footage does count to the overall allowed square footage there for signs on the property. The sign ordinance provides a total sign allowance for businesses based on this linear footage of the principal business frontage. Staff has determined that the principal business frontage faces Mount Diablo Boulevard, which is its longest side at 43 feet 9 inches, which allows for a maximum allowance of 65 square feet in overall signage. The square footage of the Headlands Brew Company sign is 9.4 square feet, while the logo is 13.64 for a total of 23.4 square feet, complying with the maximum sign allowance for the building. By proposing only 2 signs, the applicant is minimizing the amount of signage, which is consistent with the findings. Additionally, the 2 signs are simplistic in design, with one being the company's logo and the other the name of the company. The southeast sign will be metal painted a Pantone 180C, which is a red color, and will have external lighting illuminating the sign. Is the lighting shade? While the proposed awning sign will be bold in color, its minimalistic design and small scale to the overall building will not overpower its surroundings. By using simple words and graphics, limiting the number of signs, and being compatible with the new design of the building, staff is able to support the applicant's request for new signage. Staff is able to make the findings for both applications and recommends approval of both the change of conditions and sign application. The project has been evaluated in accordance to CEQA and determined to be categorically exempt under Section 15301, Class 1, existing facilities. Property owners within 300 feet of the property were mailed a notice of public hearing and immediate area was posted. Staff has received no public comments for either application. Staff recommends the Design Review Commission hold a public hearing, review the application, and find the project exempt from CEQA, adopting Resolution 2020-13 for the change of conditions application, and approve both applications subject to the conditions. I am available for questions. Thank you.
Yes, I have one question. What is the height from the deck to the base of the bottom of the sign?
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. I don't know if you could see here, but from the sign to the grade is 9 feet 5 inches.
Okay, but what about from the floor coming up?
It'll be hanging over. It won't be directly on the floor of the deck. It'll be hanging over it.
Well, it looks like it's hanging over a seating area. Am I correct or not? I mean, it looks like there's a rail, but it looks like there's some type of seat or something.
I'll allow the applicants to explain or to clarify that.
Oh, here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ben Frummagen, the project designer. Nice to see everyone this evening. That is correct. That is a bench, a continuous bench along the southern edge of the deck, above which is suspended the sign. I believe the bottom of the sign is at about 6 feet off of the finish deck height, but I could verify that for you by measuring in a drawing. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, we can, are there any other questions by commissioners? John? Eugene?
Just one question to the applicant. The paint and the finish of the frame will be all factory primed and painted, right? So it would not be field painted, right? So we'd have durable, and the integrity of the color will be almost forever by warranty there, right?
Correct. The sign is intended to be powder coated.
Yeah, powder coated. Good.
In a shop with a matte finish.
Okay, and then the canvas is material and color, and the spec is such that it's going to be more solid look, right? It won't be transparent look, right? So
No,
you won't see the frames behind it.
Yeah, it's the fire resist fabric by Sunbrella,
Okay.
and
Okay.
it's a matte color and texture in a kind of dull kind of medium brown tone.
Yeah, thank you. Got it. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, the applicant can do their presentation.
I didn't realize we were going to present it, but I'm happy to discuss the sign. Haven't done this before.
Well, if you're satisfied with what Melanie has presented.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
We can just go on to questions directed
Yeah.
to you.
I don't think that there's really any other clarifications other than in this most recent drawing we submitted to Melanie, we just clarified the fact that the illumination of the sign is to be LED tape light in a warm Kelvin temperature, 3000 on a dimmer and on an on-off switch, and to be basically field mocked up for its final positioning, with the intent to wash just an even amount of low level of light across the street side of the sign. So it's intended to be really subtle and discreet, and we basically have taken it as far as we can in a detailed drawing, short of having it actually fine-tuned as part of the install.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Do we have any public comments or questions?
If you'd like to make a public comment, please raise your hand using that function at the bottom of your screen, or press star 9 if you're calling in, and you'll be let in to make your public comment. I don't see any public comments.
Okay, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. So John, why don't you begin?
I have no significant concerns with this. I think that the frontage to the street is calm and tasteful, and will have a little bit of color pop. I think it will be a nice addition to Mount Diablo Boulevard. I guess I'm a little bit unclear on the second awning that faces the courtyard. I think the presentation that staff had shared with the commissioners a few days ago looks a little different than the current renderings that are on the screen right now. Maybe that should have been a question. Could I ask the designer to explain if the design has changed since an earlier submission?
Yeah, that is correct. We reduced the amount of coverage of the awning. We had originally extended it all the way to the east end of the building, and it was a bit overbearing and excessive. So we minimized the impact of it.
I think I would like to see a little better screening there. I mean, you can kind of, the equipment, these renderings shows that the rooftop equipment is still fairly visible. It's partially concealed. So I would suggest a little better screening, but I think I agree that what you had shown in the earlier scheme is probably more than is necessary.
Yeah, what we did on the low end, if I might add to the to this awning, is we basically were holding it up off the roof surface by about 10 to 12 inches, so as to let air flow and indirect light actually kind of move through there. We didn't want to really make a solid covering there. And also wanted to just point out that the equipment itself and the back of the building will be painted to kind of basically camouflage it further from it. If at any vantage point it can be visible.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Eugene, your comments?
Okay. Yes, through the chair. I agree with Commissioner Gray's comments on the back awning device that is screening the HVAC units up there. In your rendering on the right-hand corner, I could see that mechanical unit quite clearly. You know, it's about diagonally shaded or covered, but the other part of it is clearly visible. And so if you could help us do a little bit more somehow to either move that mechanical unit further in, I don't know if you can do that, or the awning device further extended out. I think I share Commissioner Gray's concern if you could do something. I understand your technical issues or specification issues with this awning device, but we're just looking at from a city's perspective that the mechanical unit on the right-hand most rendering on the far right at the edge, it's very clearly evident. And I, as one commissioner, I think I concur with Commissioner Gray, and maybe I'm going a little bit further to ask you to cover that to allow your perspective to fully screen that out. But my comments are very positive, just like Commissioner Gray, and I think it's also going to be with the chair, is that this is the kind of moves on the street that we've been encouraging to allow better street activity, urban design, with quote unquote spillover opportunities to create a more active street scene. And I think this one does that. Your cross section, building section clearly demonstrate that. And we appreciate how you integrated the sitting area at the ledge with your awning device to create a kind of a unique way to activate the street. So that's it. I support this project. Just work on that screening device on the back area. Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, and my comments sort of parallel the other two commissioners. Just for your information, I was asking about the height of the front because I was considering the fact that 8 inches, 8.3 inches, no, 8.5 inches is not a very high sign. But I don't want to lower it any lower than what it is and then have people get up off the bench or try to sit on the bench and be hitting the bottom of the sign. So I think it's colors are fine. You said it's an on-off switch. I sort of would like to see a time control switch.
Okay,
But other than that, the dimmer and everything else, it looks fine with me. And I think that we can have staff review any changes in the back awning or the repositioning of any mechanical equipment to satisfy the comments that were made by the commissioners. So do I have a motion on this project?
Before you motion, just to clarify, so two added conditions would be for the applicant to do some type of design to screen the mechanical units more, and for a control switch to the lighting?
A time clock.
Time clock, but those would both be added conditions?
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay,
Well,
do I have a resolution by
yeah.
anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion with those two conditions attached for approval of this application.
And do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. So we'll go through roll call on approval. John,
Aye.
Eugene,
Aye.
Glenn, aye. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Moving on to item 7B. This is TAC and Cindy Tam for a residence at 777 Tanglewood. Drive. So I think Jonathan is our staff member. Jonathan, you have the floor.
All right, good evening, commissioners. I think the last item for us tonight is HTP 0618. It's for the construction of a single-family residence at a vacant property, as the chair mentioned, at 777 Tanglewood. So first, I wanted to bring up Google Earth and show where the property is located in the context of the city. So let me bring that up. All right. So as we zoom into the city boundaries, the property is located south of downtown, east of the reservoir. The main road here is Moraga Road, and then I'll place my cursor where the property is highlighted right here. It's a heavily treed site. So it's accessed by Moraga Road going into Tanglewood. Tanglewood kind of turns around here, and then the property is accessed by a private access easement known as North Road right here, and then Cerro Encantado is just north of that. So some of the constraints to this property while we're looking at it, I think the one that's the most apparent is that the site is heavily vegetated. 16 trees are proposed to be removed, 13 of which are protected by the city's tree protection ordinance. Other physical constraints are steep slopes. You can kind of make it out here that the properties to the south on Tanglewood Drive set at a higher elevation, and the properties to the north at Cerro Encantado are at a lower elevation. And the property here in the middle kind of slopes in either direction to meet those 2 points. Also for constraints, we have the drainage channel that's running the length of the property west to east, which has heavily influenced the siting of the residence and the design and its access into the property. In terms of neighborhood context, all surrounding parcels are developed with single-family residences and are zoned for single-family. The subject property is also zoned for single family in the R20 zoning district, where the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. This property is non-conforming substandard lot at 17,000 square feet. Go back to our presentation. So I think a good place to start for this application is to acknowledge that the property is a legal lot of record. In 2014, the city issued a certificate of compliance, which acknowledged that the property had been created in conformance with the California Subdivision Map Act and the other local laws that were in place at the time. And as such, the city has found it to be a legal lot of record. So the city cannot prohibit all development on the property, and it has to allow some form of viable economic use to the property owner. And in this case, a single family residence is permitted by right. It's a permitted use in the R20 zoning district. But the areas to which the city does have discretion is design review for the structure being over 17 feet in height, hillside development because it's development of a vacant property in the hillside overlay district, and then also grading permit findings and the creek setback, which was approved earlier this year. Hillside development applications on vacant properties are reviewed in 2 phases. First phase is siting and massing. So where is the property, or where's the residence going to sit on the property? And massing, meaning what is the general height, scale, and size of the residence going to be? The Planning Commission approved phase 1 in 2017 and reapproved it earlier this year, a few months ago. And during those public hearings, the building envelope shifted a bit to the south, away from the road. Planning Commission wanted a greater distance to the roadway, also exploring ways to have a site that didn't require any variances, and also move the residents further south into the creek to retain more of the trees on the property. Along with that phase 1 siting and massing determination, the city council, or excuse me, the planning commission adopted a mitigated negative declaration, which was prepared in accordance with CEQA to assess the potential impacts on the environment. So things were looked at such as biological resources, cultural resources, the archaeological resources, noise, aesthetics, etc. The Planning Commission adopted the MMD along with the mitigation measures to bring those potential impacts to a less significant level, and also adopted conditions of approval, a couple of which I wanted to talk about. Some of the things that have happened between phase 1 and today's phase 2. So of those conditions, one was for the applicant to work with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife for the work within that drainage feature. The CDFW did find that that drainage feature was in their jurisdiction, so they entered into a stream bed alteration agreement with the applicant that allowed the work to be done, but there are some mitigation measures that need to be met before construction. And then second to that, and tied to that, is the city approved a creek setback exception that allowed development within a usually restricted area for properties adjacent to creeks. Which brings us to today's phase 2 review with the Design Review Commission. The Design Review Commission will be looking at the details of the project, including the architecture, design, colors and materials, exterior lighting, landscaping, and also we'll be looking at complying with the direction that the phase 1 conditions of approval set out. So the Planning Commission, when it approved phase 1, specified that approval was the maximum extent of development, so maximum footprint, maximum siting, and they assumed that the Design Review Commission would make modifications to possibly reduce those two attributes in order to end up with a more appropriate site. They also had a condition of approval stating that the building footprint could be modified if it would result in more trees to be retained, because tree removal was an important aspect of their phase 1 application. So in the staff report that we prepared for you tonight, it goes over those previously mentioned areas and offers recommendations to modify the project to better align with our required findings. So a couple of those things are massing changes, landscape changes, and requesting additional material to look at the concrete foundation and the driveway. Happy to answer any questions about those after the presentation. We noticed this phase 2 application to all neighbors within 300 feet of the property, and we received quite a few comments after the publication of the staff report and up till noon at today's meeting. So I wanted to touch on some of those common themes because a lot of them wrote about similar areas of concern. So first one is tree removal. Several letters asserted that the project was violating the city's tree protection ordinance. However, staff finds that there has been no violation of the ordinance. The project proposes removal of trees to accommodate development, and some level of tree removal is expected when we're working with a vacant property in the Hillside Overlay District, which are often heavily treed. The tree protection ordinance talks about allowing tree removal to accommodate necessary improvements to private property, which construction of a single family residence would be. But as a result, replacement trees are to be planted as mitigation, and that would be expected of the property owner if approved. So moving on to unbuildable lot, several comment letters again assert that the property is unbuildable and was never intended to be developed. But again, the city acknowledges that the property is a legal lot of record and has to allow some form of development. For drainage, in 2016, the city engineer took a look at the drainage plan for phase 1 and offered comments and directed offered comments to revise the drainage plan and provide a hydrology report to look at the flow of water that would be expected for that drainage feature. And it's my understanding that the city engineer has not looked at those submitted responses as part of this phase 2 application. So that's part of the reason for the continuance, is to allow the city engineer time to look at those materials. As for road maintenance, several comment letters all touched on the concern with a new residence going up and the construction materials associated with that negatively impacting the road. But the city cannot weigh on the road maintenance for private roads such as Tanglewood Drive. But instead, oftentimes, private roads are handled by a road maintenance agreement that talks about maintenance, cost, and the responsibility of that. Moving on to Architectural Review Committee, several letters acknowledge that the Tanglewood Homeowners Association has not approved the design of the residence. But again, the city can't enforce private CCNRs for homeowners association. So if the city were to approve the application, that's something that the property owner would have to work out with the homeowners association if they choose to. The city has its own required findings for approval, and we review projects based on those alone. And then lastly, we have home size. Again, a couple comment letters touched on that the size of the home was out of scale with the surrounding neighborhood. But in looking at the project plans, the gross floor area is around 2,400 square feet. And that in gross floor area meaning living space and unconditioned space. So that includes the garage. If we look at just living space alone, it's around 1,800 square feet. And in looking at county records and the city's GIS mapping software, we can see that the size range of homes, of adjacent homes, is between 1,500 and 4,500 square feet, with a median probably being around 2,000 or 2,100. So staff finds that the size of this home is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, just looking at square footage alone. And with that, staff recommends that the commission review the project, conduct a public hearing, provide direction to the applicant, and continue the item to December 16th, 2020. Here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, John, you have any questions for Jonathan?
I do. Thank you, Jonathan, for your thorough report. I would like clarification on one of the staff recommendations in your report. On page 6, one of your, the top 2 bullet recommendations, the first is introduce varied roof forms to break up the continuous linear roof line. But more actually, the second one, consider breaking up the massing at the northeast corner of the residence. Could you put the image of the residence on the screen and clarify what you're suggesting?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So I think the best elevation would probably be the north. So we'll show that first. Both of those comments or recommendations are intended to better align the project with the required findings for design review that talk about reducing the scale of structures and making sure they don't appear too massive if they're over 17 feet in height. So let's pull up the north elevation. So my comment for the roof line is, when looking at the front elevation, I'm seeing everything at one building height, and having areas where it drops down or changes the roof form or changes the roof height, I find would reduce the massive boxy look of the residence. So right now, if we look at the site plan, it's a very simple site plan with just largely just one rectangle, and I'm looking for ways to not have it be so boxy and have it better align with the findings. So dropping portions so that that continuous roof line is broken down, and finding ways at the northeastern corner to again not make things so linear and not make things so boxy.
Okay, John, other comments or questions?
That's my only questions for Jonathan. Thank you.
Okay, Eugene, any questions or comments?
No, none at this time, Glenn.
Okay, and I have none for Jonathan as well. You did a very good job, Jonathan. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the presentation by the client.
Jonathan, I'm not seeing the applicant's name. Is there, are they listed as a different name in the attendees list?
Taking a look now, Mike Masano indicated that he would be joining, so let me double check what his number would be. And if Mike, you are in the attendees list, please raise your hand. Okay, so I don't believe that the phone number is from Mike. He seems to have more of a local area code 925, so I don't expect that's him.
Okay. Well, it's a little awkward, but I guess we can move on to community comments.
If you wanted to do that, I can go ahead and perhaps call the applicant.
Sure.
Okay.
So will we move on to community comments, and you'll be doing that in the background?
Yes. And then Jonathan, can you do the timing for an announcement?
Yes, we'll do.
Okay, so do we have any raised hands this evening?
We have Rory Snyder coming in. And you may present your public comment and unmute yourself. You'll have 3 minutes.
You're muted.
I'm going to ask you to unmute with our button here.
There it goes.
Okay, so it says you're unmuted, but we're still not getting any audio from you.
I can vaguely hear you. That's very lightly.
Can you try me again, Jonathan? Unmute.
That is much better. We can hear you.
I can't hear them.
Okay, Rory, you have 3 minutes.
I just lost the voice again.
I don't know what the problem is because
Okay,
now you're back.
You're back. Don't change anything.
Okay, we'll
You
go
got
from
3
that.
minutes, Rory.
I live at 768 Tanglewood Drive, just across the street from the lot in question. I'm a past president of the THA, that's Tanglewood Homes Association, and currently on the Architectural Review Committee. And I have a number of things to address, and let me know if I go over my allotted time. First of all, that notifications, we're concerned that we don't often get early enough or enough notifications about meetings. This one, for example, 8 days ago, I got the letter, and the meeting was scheduled tonight, the day before Thanksgiving. Did not give a lot of time for us to think about it and reply as we would like to. And I would think also that if you're doing something about in a homeowners association, that all the homeowners in that association should probably get a notice of the meeting. You think? So the December 16th meeting is scheduled already. I think might be a little soon. You might have to postpone that because there's so much stuff going on, and we don't have you don't even have the owners represented tonight yet, right? So that'll be postponed. Okay, and that next thing I want to talk about is the TAMs must submit their plans to the THA before construction to the Architectural Review Committee. And that's according to our CCNRs, our covenants, codes, and restrictions. And they haven't done that yet. And they'll need to do that maybe after the next meeting when the plans are, when and if they're finally finalized. So I hope they know that. Now, the trees, people have spoken to that. You know, Tanglewood is an oak thing. This is the main thing of our whole homeowners association. And to remove 16 trees is pretty excessive. And I think could alter and ruin the way things look and the character and the beauty of this homeowners association. And also it says 13 are protected. If they're protected, how do you get to take them out? What does protected mean? Anyway, I would take a look at that. And the plans to replace those trees with little small trees will take, we'll all be dead before they grow up big enough. Now, speaking to triggers and variances, as far as I understand, they have been granted a variance to not put 2 parking spots on their property. In the THA rules, everybody has to have 2 off-street parking on their property for visitors. And there's
Or
not
you have
room on their
about
property.
20 seconds, so please make your final
How
statement.
much?
20 seconds.
20 seconds? I'm to 3 minutes already? You're talking all the time. I got okay. Safety during construction. We're concerned about that. Our president wrote a extensive email. I hope you saw that. We're worried about safety and damage to the road. The story poles and flags. Has the planning commission approved those? Has the planning staff seen those yet? If so, they should be taken down. We've been looking at it for months on end. In fact, this whole project is going 5 years and more. It just makes it very difficult because we changed. All you people have changed out. We have new officers and members committees in the homeowners association.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any more raised hands? Star 9 comments? No?
Not seeing any. We have one coming in here. All right, please state your name and feel free to provide your comment. And unmute yourself, please. There you go. If you're speaking, we cannot hear you. It says you are not muted. So
I am
there we
speaking.
go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, my name is Ellen Anderson. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
The screen froze.
We We hear you.
Um,
We
Can hear
hear
you.
you.
Please continue.
These meetings, this meeting is scheduled. Okay. Again, these meetings have been around holidays. Meeting was set for the day before Thanksgiving. The prior meeting was set for the day after Labor Day. I trust that further meetings regarding this matter will not be set. So the bottom of the hill on Seabrook Court out with enough notice for the neighbors. And I've been following this matter for years. The project, the lot is a non-conforming, unbuildable lot to be left vacant as a catch basin and storage basin for the Tanglewood development. The following are my comments regarding the current staff report. As been discussed, the house faces Tanglewood Drive. This grid and interferes with the natural beauty of the landscape. No other house in the neighborhood is remotely similar to that. Removal of mature trees is against Lafayette tree ordinances. The name Tanglewood says it all. The neighborhood, the oak trees are the focus of the neighborhood. Removal of 16 mature trees will cause a big gap in. And again, planting new trees will not solve the problem. The first look at the Tanglewood neighborhood entrance would be ruined with an industrial looking rectangular building instead of beautiful trees and wildlife. Also, the culvert removes a large amount of water from rains from the Tanglewood and Mountain View neighborhoods. The house and bridge are in direct line of the water flow, and backed up water and erosion are legitimate concerns. The building would remove any privacy for the adjoining neighbors. So this is several applicants have tried to do this. They have all failed or they've been withdrawn. And again, this fails. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
5 of them.
Okay, Jonathan, do
Yeah.
we have the third comment?
Didn't make it.
I'm not seeing any other raised hands.
Okay, we don't have an applicant, so I feel free on making comments since it's going to be continued. They're going to come back so they can listen to our comments. It is not the most expeditious way of doing this, but nevertheless, this is what we're going to do. I'd like to make a couple comments before I go to the other commissioners for the public, and that is that we're design review. The compatibility of this, buildability of this is an issue that has already been resolved and is outside of our control. Also, the comments to or warning of the public is unfortunate that it does fall near a holiday and the next one falls near a holiday again. I don't know if they will make the December 16th date or not. So maybe we should consider moving it back to January so that it doesn't have that impact. Okay, Jonathan or John or Eugene, who wants to go first?
I'm happy to start.
Okay, thank you, John.
I'm disappointed the applicant is not here to discuss this. Of course, I did have some questions for them. In general, my comments, I believe it is fair to allow this site to be built if it's subject to, the various considerations and mitigations needed to do this. If you all have looked at the staff report, you'll see that building adjacent to this seasonal creek channel is a big deal. And the constraints that this applicant will be under to do that are quite significant. So, you know, I believe that is fairly addressed. As to the removal of trees, I think Jonathan spoke to that. I would agree with comments that landscape screening to the properties that are on the low side, which would be to the north, is it Encantado is the name of the street in that direction. I agree that, and I think that's consistent with staff findings, that screening on that side of the property is important. I would add to that screening on the high side, where there's the very sort of plain facade facing Tanglewood Drive. I think landscape screening is appropriate for mitigation there, and I believe that's also been addressed in the staff report. Regarding the character of the building, in my view, I do not see this as an industrial looking design. It's a modern looking design. However, I think it is a nice looking house. I think maybe some things can be done to do a little bit of height reduction and softening at the ends to, you know, reduce that tendency to see a single roof line. However, from the low side of the house, I don't believe that you see the roof line as it's represented in elevation. When you're down below the roof line, you're looking up at the eaves. There is considerable stepping there that to me is successful in breaking up that massing. So I think that this applicant still has a little work to do, but I believe they're going in the right direction. And I hope that the neighbors will be able to see it that way.
Okay, Eugene, comments?
Yeah, through the chair. My comments are in need of a sort of a communication or dialogue with the applicant and the Tam family, because I wanted to ask them about how they went about. And it's my questions are really more about the detail and articulation. I agree with Commissioner Gray. We're Design Review Commission here, and I'm looking mainly about the massing and the opportunities to further articulate the corner. The side elevations are something that I would like to see the applicant further address. Like, in other words, instead of going straight up vertically, even though portions of the site are fairly buried into the cut of this area, but I think the northeast corner and even the other side, the shorter elevation profile area where it just goes up straight vertically, because it's a sensitive matter with the neighbors and all. And I'd like to just see how the applicant could address kind of articulating the side elevations, the corner areas. So in other words, can the second floor bump out a little bit? You know, like a slight cantilever, not a major cantilever because that would be excessive cost, but to break up the verticality of it, because we're trying to go more horizontal here. Some ideas, creativity with that would be appreciated on my side. Without having talking to Mr. or the family, the Tam family tonight, I'm just talking about some of the things I thought would be helpful if we could further see some articulation. The bridge would be another one. I agree with the staff report generally. And again, staff is alluding to that as well about the articulation and the character of the bridge as well. So for me, I think it's a simple design. And I agree also with Commissioner Gray. It's a minimalistic, you know, modern looking. But again, any concerns about further articulation, I would be looking for the side elevation, the corners, and maybe some more inventive ideas on doing something with a roof line if that is one that could be possible. But I'm open to how they could demonstrate their limitations and the possibilities here at this point. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, before I start, Sarah, I see that Mike is now present, or Jonathan, I see that Mike is now present. Would it be prudent for him to do a late presentation, or how should we handle this?
At the pleasure of the commission, you could either have him do a presentation or you could just jump straight to questions, or
I'd like, since he's on, to do a presentation then, if possible. And obviously, he's heard many of these comments by the community before. This is going to be a continuance. So if he wants to brainstorm any changes that he's thinking of or will ascertain, we'd appreciate that as well. Mike, you have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I apologize I was just out of work, and so I just totally forgot about the meeting. I apologize. Yeah, was able to read the staff report and the comments, the public comments, and they went back. There's quite a history, as you know, on this project. They went back many years to the previous owner, actually. So, and as you know, the lot is quite a challenge. There's many constraints on it. And through the Planning Commission process, we got through the envelope and a lot of the legal questions about legal lots. We were able to address the drainage reserve through the Fish and Wildlife application and approval. So there's been many, many steps that we've done all along the way. And I did hear some of the last comments about articulation of the site elevation and the bridge and whatnot. So what I'd like to do is, Sarah, can you share, or Jonathan, can you share the screen with me?
I believe you have the capability to share your screen.
Yeah. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm opening up the drawings. So the project, as we had mentioned, is very constrained. We have several the setbacks, trees, slope analysis, and this is a composite. And you can see the entire lot is overlaid with constraints. So we were able to get, there was mention of a variance, but we really didn't have any variance that I can recall. This goes back to 2016. We honored the setbacks along the road. We had several options on how we were going to approach the house. And the last option was to come along here to build a bridge because it's furthest away from this area here. As you know, this is a 15-mile-an-hour road, and this is through Tony Coe, previous city engineer. We worked all that out and figured that this was the actual best approach to the house and then bridging across. So the house is quite narrow. It's, the bridge and two-car garages affords 4 cars to park. We've dug it into the hillside, as you can see in this elevation. This is the line of the road coming down behind the house. So our plan is fairly straightforward. We have the bridge and the garage. We have the living units, the living space downstairs, and the bedrooms upstairs. Let me go back to the site plan. So the site itself, we did some landscaping, and I did see the comments on the landscape regarding the landscaping, and we can accommodate all that. We removed 16 of the trees that you see here X'd out. I communicated with Jonathan today. This number C tree is also obviously going to be removed. It's not X'd out, but it's included in the 16. The drainage reserve in the center here, we've avoided the edge of the drainage reserve, and through Fish and Wildlife, we've got the approval with conditions, and the report is quite lengthy, and it's in the staff report. The conditions of construction, pre-construction, monitoring, revegetation or reconstruction of the site, looking for different species ranging from rats to birds, so and bats. So so we fit the house in as well as we could. In the earlier planning commission approval of the envelope, Gina Telovich, commissioner then, had mentioned that I was taking my average of the lowest foundation at an incorrect point. I had taken it from here to here, and it raised this this bottom level up. You can see the original approved envelope of the Planning Commission, and then we came back when we readjusted the elevation that they're taking from the bottom. It's when we came up with a flat roof. And I understand that one of, I can't remember or recall the name of the design review that was just chiming in at the end. He was mentioning about the brainstorming and stuff. I've done a house up in Hunsacker Canyon that I think that the roofscape would be similar in that we do have sort of limited top plates on the upper floor. We wanted to get a little bit more volume. So I've actually done a curved open truss metal truss roof, and they're pretty easy to design and get right on. And I think that might help present this elevation a little better, and it could make the roofscape up here appear a little bit more interesting. So that was one of my personal concepts after we had submitted this and we're talking about it, what could be done. I think that on this elevation here, that we could definitely work on perhaps some awning structures over this door, and continuing something this effect of the column here and here. We can bring that back onto this elevation, therefore shortening up the tallness of this wall by having a material continue back. So those were my two thoughts on what I might continue on the design of the project itself. So that really was simple materials, cement plaster and a nice moss green, a dark green, some rich wood, and these are I've seen it. I don't know if you've heard of the materials, Swiss pearl. It's almost like a very fine cement board finish that comes in panel forms, and you can get them in different colors, different sheens. So I just think with keeping them simple with just several materials works well. Sarah, before Jonathan had taken over the project, was concerned about the lack of landscaping itself. Obviously, we're limited, but what our proposal is if you've been to the site, you can see that it's really quite overgrown. It's the owners have maintained some of the things on the drainage in this inlet here, but really the plan is that I've talked with the owners is to we plant this screening along here because this is really the only privacy concern that we had demonstrated in this cross section. But we would develop this area itself with its own landscaping, natural landscaping. And the owners are quite happy with just this minimal amount of patio here looking out into this yard itself. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. I, again, apologize for being late, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm gonna reopen for any comment or questions or comments by both John and Eugene before I go back to my. So John, why don't you, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, I'd like clarification on the extent of proposed grading versus how much of the site is going to be left with existing grades. It looks like you're trying to have a fairly light touch on the amount of grading, but could you explain that, please?
Yeah, the grading itself. Let's see. The grading itself, we've tried to stay inside the footprint as much as possible. There'll be some work required for this abutment here. So there'd be an abutment wall put right across there. And this is almost already at grade. This is just going to need to be surfaced with a gravel. So crossing the drainage reserve, we have no impacts. And then what we're going to do as part of the construction plan is we construct the bridge first from this side, do these abutments and these abutments, construct the bridge, and now it gives us quite a large platform and staging area, as you can see all along here. That's all, it's quite a bit of parking for this place. So then we come in here and we excavate from this side the area required for the retaining walls, and we build the retaining walls first. That's there's concerns about the stability of the road, and it's I can't say it's been proven, but I know that time has told us that the engineering of these walls is basically a buttress for these banks. This bank is really quite steep. So the walls here will act as a buttress, and then we platform frame starting from back here, coming out and building out. So this area here is one of the grading required just to align the center line of the drainage well, because right now it meanders in here and it comes in here towards this house. So this is just light grading in order to get the center line of the flow line away from the house. But this will all be returned to the natural. So there's no grading proposed outside of the perimeter of the house.
Okay, I mean, that's an important point, that within the 20-foot setback from Tanglewood Drive, you're basically not touching the grades, correct?
There will be some, let's look at the section. That'll explain.
Or just a little bit of swale development right against the house.
Exactly, yeah. There'll be. I've got a section here. You can see this area right here will be just enough to get the water from the back of the house here. Yeah.
So I mean, what my point would be to the public here is that there is nothing to disturb this slope compared to its current condition. And you know, in my view, I think the applicant and the designer is doing a good job at basically not touching that slope at all and not impacting its stability.
We're actually improving the stability.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, Eugene?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Masano, this is Eugene Singh here. Just wanted to ask you a couple questions about the articulation that you were catching up at the last moment of my discussion points. So I do appreciate what you said, Mr. Masano. One of the things that you were going to do is to further study the articulation of the roof profile to see how it could appear in a more of a natural landscape, how that would be. So that was encouraging. So I appreciate if you could study that that you were alluding to create the less of a boxy look. And then the side elevation there, your suggestion of taking that colonnade, the articulated or layering, it's kind of a layering, additional layering in the foreground of the skin to get you more texture. I do appreciate that as well. So if you could do some of those studies and present to us. So the key is to break the vertical plane as much as you can. And also, because it's such a sensitive site from a roof appearance, I would suggest you look at all the flue vents and vent flues and any mechanical air stuff on the walls on the rear or somewhere else, so the roof could be kept as clean as possible, of course. Practically possible, that is, of course. You might still have something, but if you could really try to do that, that would be really appreciated. And well-detailed gutter line and downspout stuff, because that roof is going to be what you're presenting to the public. And I do appreciate Commissioner Gray's comments. Certainly that is a very good question and very good response from you. That really helps from our design review commission looking at this from a public impact. My other question would be, when you're looking at the perspective view from the up, is it downhill toward that corner where the parking garage appear? Oh, there you go. Is that the view you would see about there from the road, or is it sort of slightly, abstract? Is that what you would actually see from a car or a pedestrian there? That,
yeah,
okay.
This is the contours are designed or actually constructed from the survey, and these are the locations of the trees. This view here is taken from right about here, looking this way. So, and this is the road coming up. So this view coming up will be a little bit further back, but this is the view that you're looking at.
I see. One more thing is, I don't know if you have it, but sort of like trying to do the best we can to narrate the view from the neighbor that is below you. That is probably the most impacted, but you're going to use evergreen trees and a family of landscaping along that buffer edge at the top there you were showing. Do you have any sort of a cross section through there, or sort of a image that we understand how it might appear, your building with landscape in the front? In other words, do you see anything of your building? You do?
This is the site section. This is the Tanglewood Road. This is the neighborhood above it. And then that's it.
And then below? The one below on the right side? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Musano. This is very helpful.
This is what we were trying to do right here to block.
And the house is the house on the right side of their property is further inside of their property, probably on the right side. Do you know how far the closest sensitive point is with their house structure?
It's about 92 feet away.
Away from the edge of their house? Okay, got it.
That's the distance that we were asked to demonstrate.
Yeah, very good diagram. Thank you, Mr. Masana. This is a very compelling diagram. I appreciate that. Okay, so reiterate. Oh, before I do that, the bridge. Can you explain to us the detailing and your thoughts on the bridge articulation?
Yeah, the bridge we were going to try to leave as raw as possible. We were going to have some I-beams, and then pan deck, and then concrete. And we're trying to make this look as much like a shelf as we can. And I think with the simple steel railings and the I-beam under here, and then if we could introduce these open truss steel roof trusses, I think that it would really tie everything together. Really pretty simple, and I don't want to say raw, but just let the materials be the finish for aesthetics and for durability. There'll be no
yeah.
wood or bolts, you know what I mean? It'll be just,
Yeah, those could be really beautiful if you do that well. So Mr. Masana, the base, the concrete base over there, the retaining wall, the platform, yes, that piece and the bridge column. Can you explain to how you're finishing? Because I've seen beautiful concrete in Germany or Japan, but locally, we've had some hit and misses in the local architecture with the concrete. But I wanted to, because that's such a feature in your project, can you explain to us what the finish is and how you're going to keep that quality of concrete nicely done for your project?
yeah, our plans at this time were to have this board formed natural concrete finish. One of the things that we had explored is, as you know, I think one of the material colors, this clay color on the side, and these plaster columns are clay. I would opt to color this concrete the same, but leave it board.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting.
Then this would just ground. This would just come in and continue into the ground, and then come underneath and around.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Masana. If you could study the side elevation of the roof and see how you could also utilize that roof form on the rear side so that whatever the public sees, any part of your house project, that you would not see a wall or any kind of a boxy look. So thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think Mr. Masano addressed everything I was looking for, and looking forward to Mr. Masano showing us these new and refined design articulations at the next meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so it's my turn. First of all, I just want to report that I had Jonathan check. My house is 700 some feet away, so I am allowed to make comments tonight. Although I have to actually say, in 30 years of living in Lafayette, this is the first time I've ever been on Tanglewood. Even though my yard touches the back of Tanglewood. But I agree with most of the comments by the other commissioners. I like the comment about the clay color on the foundation to soften up and make it more natural looking. My actual comment is that I drove out to the site and I looked at the story poles, and I think that the south elevation is too boxy to me. There's not a lot of definition in regards to articulation or anything. The windows actually are very appropriate in size when you look at what the rooms are in the areas that they are. I was a little confused on drawing A 3.2 because on one side it says horizontal wood siding and on the other side it says plaster finish. But it looks like the plaster finish is the same wood siding. It has the same horizontal lines across it. So is there one uniform pattern on the backside, or is there a change in materials on the backside, or what am I looking at?
This plaster that is on this end of the house, at one time, and it might have been something when I was re-rendering this plaster was scheduled to return the corner here so that this end of the house was a plaster element. And see this?
Yes.
It just returns around the house. And I've just got to figure out, there's really no horizontal break here. So I'd have to detail that. But that's what's my intention.
Okay, well, that will help break it up some. But my comment is that you have 70 some feet and it's a pretty solid thing. And it is literally what the neighbors would consider the front of the house on Tanglewood, which is really the back of the house. And it looks like a back of a house. It looks like, the stuff that most people don't have to see, but suddenly it's very visible as you drive up Tanglewood. When I looked up there, the slope is such that you're going to get a good view coming down that sloped area. And so I would like to see some work done on that facade. I don't really have full recommendations on what to do, but I would like to see some improvement. Okay, and just for the public comment, we as commissioners, we don't really look at drainage and runoff. The city engineer will do that, and he will approve what is done and will monitor what is done. So we will be looking for his recommendation and comments before, as a part of the next meeting that we're continuing to. Okay, that wraps up my comments. So do we have a motion? And first of all, before we have a motion, is it possible, Jonathan, to extend it to not do the December 16th date?
Yes.
Because it's literally a week before Christmas, and
Yeah, we can look at the first meeting in January.
yeah, I'd like to, if possible, I'd like to move it to that. Are we under a time constraint by any means?
There may be upcoming timeline on the Permit Streamlining Act, but if the applicant is agreeable, we could do a one-time extension.
Okay, well, check it out in the interim, and if we have to modify our recommendation or whatever, or, you know, just let us know in the agenda that will be sent out. Okay, so do we have a?
Chair
Yes,
Kath?
yes,
Because I had made my comments before Mr. Masano was joining us, may I do a brief summary of a couple of things I just would like him to hear directly?
sure.
So I spoke, Mr. Masano, before you joined. My comments, just to reiterate quickly, I think the character of the house is quite nice, especially I would say the north elevation. I think the south elevation, the question of whether it can be, whether design can be improved or whether it can be demonstrated that screening of landscape will be such that it's really not visible. But I would say one of those two options is something we'd like to see you demonstrate. I did mention the privacy concern to the property that is further to the northwest. I think the elevation of that house is a little higher. And I know that property owner has expressed concern. So the screening that you're showing to the property straight north, I think you should do a investigation of sight lines to the property that is more to the northwest. And finally, I was going to talk about color additives to the concrete, but I'm glad you suggest that yourself. I think that's a great idea. When you come back to us, I think it would be very helpful for you to include views of the property from off-site to demonstrate the amount of screening. In particular, from at the bottom of the hill, where there are a number of existing trees, but yet your rendering kind of takes you onto the property, so you see past them. I think demonstrating the existing trees and any proposed augmenting of the landscape for screening purposes is something that we and probably the neighbors would like to see. I think it's a heavily constrained site. I think it's an admirable design to work within some very serious constraints. I believe that you're doing very well to minimize the impacts to the neighbors and still provide a useful house to the occupants. So I commend you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, good comments. Thanks.
Okay, so do we have a resolution for
And Chair Cass,
continuing?
for your reference, first meeting in January is the 13th.
Okay,
And if I might, just to make it easy, either if Mike can let us know if that's acceptable, we can use that date, but otherwise I would suggest using the December date and we can always continue it again. just so that there's not a confusion if we
Uh,
are going to the next meeting.
I would ask if TAC and Cindy Tam are listening, that they'd be allowed to answer that question. It's fine with me. I just haven't confirmed with the clients. So can they raise their hand or?
I don't see them on the line,
Okay.
but they might.
Yeah, I think so, because really, with the amount of work that is involved in this, we're going to be in December next week. So I'd have to submit within like a week before that 16th. So
Yeah,
that doesn't give me a lot of time. So yes, January 13th continuance. Thank you. Give me a little breathing room.
okay. Do we have a resolution? Does someone want to make a resolution?
The resolution is to continue this to the time certain on January 13th. So
Okay,
moved.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. John,
Aye.
Eugene,
Aye.
Glenn, aye. Thank you very much. We look
thank-
forward to seeing you in January.
Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for being late. It's not like me to be late to anything.
Okay,
Mhm.
so let's go back to the agenda. I think we just have art committee. That would normally be me unless someone had suddenly got a dying desire to do it. So I will volunteer for December 4th. Commissioners report. Do we have anything to report?
None.
Okay, I will let you know that we don't have exact dates, but tentatively, we have interviews for additional design review commissioners next week. And we have resumes for 5 individuals at this time that I know of.
Oh, great.
Okay, so
Are any of them
by
repeat applicants? Or
by January 13th, we'll have some additional comments.
Glenn, are any of the applicants repeat applicants or are they all new?
One is a repeat, as I understand, and one was an architect that worked for WJE, with Janie Elsner, mostly on historical sites. One is a woman architect who works for Gensler and does high-rise office buildings. And one of them did housing, multifamily housing in San Francisco and Oakland. And the other 2, I just don't remember. My memory's going. Or maybe they weren't distinct enough that they drew as much attention. Okay, and
Great.
that should wrap everything up. So everyone, you're adjourned. Have a happy holiday,
Okay, you too, everybody.
and we'll see you in
Thank
December.
you.
Okay,
Happy
thank you.
you.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.